People think that because their horses are quiet, do as they're told, they're fine, but actually they're shut down and they have so many issues.
Do you have a hard time explaining that that is traumatic to some traditional equestrians?
A horse who I'm working with, he's always been termed as bolshy, dangerous, doesn't respect you. If you see him for who he truly is, he'll feel it and he'll start to think differently, behave differently.
Talk us through some examples of what horse trauma you see commonly in your work.
So just because you've got a clean x-ray, it doesn't mean really deep stuff isn't going on in your horse. Horses have the right to feel safe, to feel happy, to regulate their nervous system every single day, to heal themselves. That's their given right.
What is a horse healer? Hannah Jones, founder of Saber Holistics, helps horses to release tension and rebuild trust with humans after suffering a traumatic past. She uses Reiki and essential oils in her therapeutic sessions to help a horse with all aspects of their mind, body and spirit. So how does the combination of science and spiritual help horses release trauma? And if you haven't explored a spiritual connection with your horse just yet, well, I think you might after this episode.
Hannah, welcome to Curious Equestrian.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Oh, well, I'm so excited to get into it. I've first got to start with, what type of horse healer would you describe yourself as? Because we've all got something in our mind when we use the words horse healer. Is it a horse whisperer? Is it someone with a spiritual connection? How would you describe it in your own words?
That's a really great question because I do a range of different modalities. So I would say I work with them in a very holistic way. And the first qualification I did was Reiki, and I worked up to Reiki Master. So I would say the spiritual foundation is where I began. And I kind of built up from there, really. And then including in the healing work that I do the bodywork as well. I offer essential oils. But if I was to pinpoint exactly what healer I was in a bracket, I guess it would be, the root of it would be, well, literally finding the root cause of the problem, helping them to release their trauma and tension in their mind, body and spirit. So a real holistic approach to the healing that they need.
And where did your interest begin in this area of horsemanship? We all have our different passions, don't we, in the horse world. For you, when did you become fascinated by horse trauma?
So basically through my own trauma, to be honest. And I was diagnosed with a medical condition when I was age 20. And from there, I had quite a hard time with finding a doctor to help me. I tried about 3 different countries, many different doctors, and they basically didn't know what to do. So I then became my own doctor, and I really did the work on myself, discovering the trauma I had, where it came from, why it happened. And so then over the years, I would basically try the holistic therapies that healed me on my horse, Phoenix. And then I'd say a little bit later on is when I started doing the deeper trauma work. And that's also when I trained in energy clearing and the trauma release work. So as I've gone on, I've kind of gone deeper and deeper in my work, and that just seems to be the way it goes. And I love learning. I love going on courses. And I think because I've been through deep trauma myself, that's what's led my path with horses. And I think I've been led to that because that's what's needed the most. And there isn't really that much awareness about trauma. So that's what I would really love to do for the horses, give them their voice, find out the root of their trauma and release it for them. So they don't have to carry that anymore. They don't have to have the behaviors associated with it and can just be happy every day.
And for those who don't understand horse trauma, talk us through some examples of what horse trauma you see commonly in your work.
So it can be anything really, anything that has negatively and emotionally impacted the horse. And if those emotions aren't released, it then basically sets in as trauma. And that's why then later on they can get triggered, because those memories and emotions are still there in their mind, body, and spirit. And a really common one is actually weaning trauma. So if I come across a horse who's got separation anxiety, it's usually because of that deep-rooted trauma from the way that they were weaned, because they're so young when it happens a lot of the time, and they're just not really prepared for what's going to happen or that next chapter in their lives. Even if we as humans think, oh, they're ready, their mum's not really bothered about them, but actually the emotional aspect of that happening is missing, and also the way it's done, because the horse world can just be so traditional and stick to ways that's always worked in the past, but actually, in my experience, can be really emotionally detrimental to them.
I was going to ask you, Hannah, if you have a hard time explaining that using that as an example, early weaning, do you have a hard time explaining that is traumatic to some traditional equestrians in the sphere? And also with other varieties of trauma, do you have a hard time explaining and labelling it, whereas actually it's just something that's been passed down the generations in that particular horse owner's life?
Exactly. And I think usually the clients who come to me are open to this work anyway, and they want to learn the truth, which is fantastic because it means I can be really open with what comes through and I can tell them the truth that's come up. So I am very lucky in that aspect that I can just speak freely and say what comes through. If it's somebody who perhaps doesn't really understand fully the mind, body, and spirit connection. And I really welcome that, by the way. And some clients do say, oh, I was 50-50 about getting you, I really wasn't sure. And I'm just so glad that they do and they take that chance. And there's always a way of explaining it and just helping them understand it. And I'm really passionate about that and teaching and helping them see the subtleties and the cues. But the thing is, their intuition was already on point because they knew their horse needed help. And that's amazing. And they've got the help that their horse needs. So I think it's definitely just helping raise awareness and just, from the horse's point of view, really.
And you mentioned that some horse owners might be a bit nervous about bringing on board a horse healer, but actually they're kind of open to learning more. Just describe for us and paint us a picture of what your approach is, because I think it does conjure up a lot of imagery, doesn't it, in the mind. When you think of a horse healer, you think, is there going to be sort of humming and music, or, might there be some chanting? All things we might have seen in TV and film that bring up quite dramatic imagery. What's your approach, Hannah?
So my approach is I start with what I call a spirit session. So it's basically me communicating with and talking to the horse's spirit. So, for example, if it's a 3-hour session or a holistic day, that's where I always start. So I will take a photo of the horse and a close-up of their eye. And then I put my music on and I tune in with them, usually in my car, just somewhere quiet where I can really go in like quite deep. And basically, whatever's channeled, I then type on my phone. And so the owner can basically read the report straight after, which I like because we've then got the opportunity to talk about it. They can tell me if it resonates. And it is emotional. It does stir up a lot of emotions. And it's amazing how accurate it is. And people just wonder, how did I know that? And that bit really makes sense. And it opens up their mind because they then start joining the dots. And So it's really, really special that the horses will open up like that. And in that session, I'm also clearing energy, releasing trauma, and just helping detect where in their body they might be holding tension. So that's basically the starting point, and that's normally an hour, hour and a half. And then with what comes up, it basically tailors the session or the day. And I've always got my oils box with me. So I will then bring out my box and we'll usually do about an hour of essential oils healing. And I love them because the horse basically self-selects what they need. So it's like self-medicating. And it also paints a picture of what the horse has actually been through. So I really love doing that second because it's a really lovely, supportive way to help them release their emotions. And then I will do either hands-on or hands-off healing and do body work as well. So I do the Masterson Method body work. I've been doing it for nearly 10 years now. So it's incredible. So whatever, in my experience, I've basically found whatever is found, it has to be released in all three, the mind, body, and the spirit, for it to truly be released. So that's basically how I start working with them.
So this is a really interesting combination of the spiritual and the science. Do you find that they work really well together? You've got your scientific body working that's hands-on, and then you've got your spiritual side where you're looking into the eyes of the animal and it's conjuring up messages.
Yes, exactly. And I'd say that's a really great way of putting it, blending the science and spirituality behind it. And it is really important what's going on in their body, equally as important as their mind and their spirit, because they can have different things going on in different aspects. And if that trauma is to be truly released at a cellular level, it has to be released on all three dimensions. And it's really lovely when, for example, a vet backs up my findings, or what I always find really interesting is when I'm tuning in with them energetically, what I find in the body when they're communicating with me, I always find in their physical body whilst doing body work as well. So the combination of techniques work really well together, and that's basically why I use it as my methodology.
And how do you cope, Hannah, I imagine, with some skepticism in this? So you've trained in your Reiki and your body working, and that's the scientific part that owners can see happening in motion. They can see you massaging, they can see you working through the muscles and the parts of the horse. It's very hands-on and physical. With the photo and with the tuning in, how do you get on in terms of working with owners and getting them to believe you?
So the horse really does all the work for that. And with everything that they need to say or what comes through, the owner can basically connect it with what's happened in their history, whether it happened with them or a different owner, because of course, horse ownership can change a lot. And you might not know what happened in that period before the horse came to you. So it's really helping the owner to understand their horse a lot better. And they always come to me for a reason, whether it's behavioral issues, physical issues, or they just can't put their finger on what's right. That's basically where I come in and support the horse and just help them to release what's going on. And of course, they're extremely powerful healers themselves. But if they're blocked energetically, they actually can't heal themselves. So it's really magical when that's all released and that they can start to be their true selves again. And to be honest, even when you never know what's going to come up in a report, it's so interesting, or what they're going to say. And I basically read energy, so that's what comes through first. And basically, the changes in the horse after the session say everything. So even if an owner is skeptical of reading that report at first, the changes in the horse, basically, it's kind of confirmation that the trauma was there and it's been released. But actually, even the skeptical clients, they'll read the report and they'll be in tears, or they'll be really surprised, or they'll run and go and tell their friend. I've had that happen quite a lot. And so these are the people who've approached me who are already open to it or want to try it. And it's just lovely when they can say, oh, yeah, that makes sense, or yeah, I understand that. And yeah, even if they don't, then the horse's behavior helps to unravel their story too.
Do you ever worry about going into the past of a horse and worry about the reaction of the owner if you're telling a particularly difficult story, or the owner's quite hesitant in what you're telling them?
It can be really hard, actually. And when I'm writing my reports, it's all channeled, so it just kind of all comes through me and I'm typing. And it's afterwards when I just proofread it. Sometimes I think, oh, but then I have to say what's come up. I have to tell the truth because that's why I'm there, to tell the truth for the horse. But even if something really dark or traumatic has come up, the amazing thing is that these sessions actually release it for the horse. So it's not just saying all the bad things that have happened to your horse, with previous owners or wherever. The beauty of it is that it is released and the horse can move forward. And I always take pictures of their eyes before and after I've worked with them, and they see it. They see the difference. So their horse is always guiding them, I would say, and that's really beautiful.
And tell us, Hannah, have you always been a spiritual being? And when did you first realise that you had a spiritual connection to horses?
I was very lucky because I grew up on a farm. I was surrounded by horses, and I would say spiritually, I started opening up when I was about 6. And I came back to the same healer when I was diagnosed. I would say I came to her again when I was about 22. And that's when I really started opening up. And then I did Reiki in 2013. So that's when I started doing it with Phoenix. And I would say that's when I really started tuning in with them energetically, spiritually, feeling the energy of my hands. What's their response? What are they telling me? And it just really developed from there.
Was there a sign? Was there a moment? I think we always, maybe when we talk about the spiritual, we think there's something obvious, or there's a story that goes along with the moment you realise you've got this sense that not all of us have, or certainly not all of us tune into, should I say. Did you have that kind of sense at 6, and what did that look like as a 6-year-old?
I did, and I would say it was my dog Beth that's really helped me along the journey as well. So I had Beth when she was 8. Basically, she wouldn't herd, so I brought her home on a piece of string and said, "Mum, I've got a dog."
Oh!
She was extremely special, and she was actually like a mum to me. That's the way she looked after me.
Oh!
And you've never known a sweeter, more calming and energetically magnetic dog. She was magical. So I would say Beth really helped me in just tuning in with her. And actually, she is the first animal I started feeling energy with. So her kind of bringing me up really opened me up to the path as well. So I would say that was when I started. And then I've always tried to be conscious about listening to the horse, but those skills of actually being able to hear what they're saying, I would say developed, I think, in my 20s, really. And then I've just gone deeper and deeper with it.
That's amazing that you had that kind of insight at the age of 6 to actually realise that your dog had that mothering instinct towards you, and that's the sort of presence she was. What do you think you learnt and gained from having that 4-legged, furry mother figure in your life? What do you think that gave you as you grew?
Love. She gave me so much love, unconditional love, and she was always there for me. And I think in a way, I think she knew the abilities that I had, and that's why I think she came into my life. And I really believe everything happens for a reason. And I think she gave me the spiritual support that I needed when I was growing up. So I was extremely blessed to have her in my life.
Isn't it incredible? We all know the amazing impact that animals have on our lives, but isn't it amazing when we are going through difficult times or turbulent times or such significant moments like you know, at that age, you're so vulnerable, aren't you? And everything's changing and you're learning so much about yourself and the world. How incredible that these animals are there to nurture us or to be a companion or to teach us life skills where, you know, that we don't necessarily have from the humans around us as well.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's what Saber gave me all of his life as well. And he was just so special and magical. And now he's helping me heal horses on the other side. And I think that's just as equally magical and special. So I was extremely lucky to have him come in my life as well.
And
so
for those who don't know, Saber was your cat.
Yes, he was. He was my very special cat. And I lost him in last November, but he transitioned to help me, guide me, which is such a privilege, really. And I'm very lucky that he doesn't want to leave me.
And how do you know he's with you? For those who have not experienced that in their lives, how do you know that his presence is there?
So I'll get some signs and feeling in my body. And I had an incredible healer who helped him to transition. And when we were on the phone and she was describing kind of where he was in spirit after passing over, I could actually feel him. I think he was on my left hip to start with. And I felt it in my body as she was saying that. And then if I'm lying down or something, I'll feel him on my lap, or I'll just feel his energy. And as time goes on, because of course it was quite recent, I know that I'll be connecting with him more, talking to him more, and I just know he's there all the time. But there'll be specific times where I feel him more. And it's actually a really good reminder for me, because if I haven't felt him for a day or so, it's because I'm not fully connected with myself. So it's actually a really good indication for me.
And for those who are more nervous of the word spiritual and the whole concept of being more spiritual in life or with our animals or as a person, what would you say to give someone the confidence to embrace it or to try and tap into that in their life?
I think so many people bury themselves in their emotions and they're not ready to face them. So I think shifting from fear to love would potentially be the first step. And then tuning in with yourself more. How do you feel? What are your emotions on that day? And I think that daily practice of just tuning in with yourself, you don't have to go and sit and meditate. You can, of course, if you want to, but just taking 2 minutes to recognize how you're feeling and how your body's feeling. And for me, my nervous system is a huge indication as to what I've been through or what I've just heard, what I've just felt. And I'm extremely sensitive like that. I'm a highly sensitive person, and anybody can tune in with themselves and their energy. And it's things like just feeling, you can even kind of feel it through your hands when you're actually tuning into it. And it doesn't have to be this big mystical thing. And actually, it's not, because we are spirit. That's how we exist. And we all have a spirit. And I think it's just having the bravery to step into that thought process, because your friends, your family may not believe it. They may shoot you down if you talk about it. So I think it's also finding people who you can talk to about it, people who you resonate with, and going from there, really.
I think it's so interesting. And how do you then take that leap in your life from being open to it as a person, but then bringing in that spiritual connection with your own horse? What does that look like? I know you talk about making sure you take care of the spiritual side of your horse. What does that look like in real terms?
So, noticing or feeling their energy, really looking into their eyes and being open to them letting you know how they feel, because you'll feel it. If you open up to it, you'll feel it. And whether you are around them, feeling their energy as a whole, or if you're looking at their eyes to go deeper into their emotions, and just softly watch their eyes and see what comes up, because you know those gut feelings that you get. And I know all of it, every single horse owner gets this. You just know when your horse isn't quite right. And it's because your horse is telling you. They are basically sending messages through energy to tell you that. And you are the person who knows your horse the very best, because you see them every day. You spend time with them every single day. So I think another indication or message would be to trust yourself when it comes to your horse. And again, just being open to what they might be telling you. And I know how difficult that can be when you're on a yard with people who perhaps aren't open to it, or they don't have any knowledge about spirituality, or actually how spiritual horses are and need to be. Horses need to be at a high energetic frequency. And when they're not, when something happens to disrupt that energy, that's basically when they're really vulnerable to trauma, injuries, accidents, and they can shut down to protect themselves, and they have to. So you'll know if your horse is shut down if you look at their eye and you just don't feel anything, and then waves of sadness come over you. So I think having the bravery to be open and honest, I think that would be the first step with that one.
I really love those different pointers, looking in the eyes as the starting, because I think me and Mum have had some funny reactions talking about the eyes with horses, because our mare Winnie is a rescue. She came over from Ireland, having had 4 homes before the age of 4, was passed from pillar to post because she was a handful. We think she was beaten. She had tether scars across her chest. She was back too early. She was drugged, and beyond that, we don't know what else. And it really, really awful. So we spent years rehabilitating her, teaching her to trust in us and in the humans around her. Really difficult and really awful to see such a beautiful mare with so much to give and with so much potential and with such a great nature on the ground. It was so then awful to see how she felt under saddle and that mistrust in people and her reactions to things. So we've built up such a solid trust and relationship with her, both of us. But there's still to this day these moments where you can see the flashes of the past trauma in her eyes. And that's the first inkling. She can be from one moment the kindest, calmest mare. You can trust her with babies, toddlers on her back, dogs running between her legs. She'll be sane, she'll be going to sleep, she'll be mutual grooming. You could trust her with your life. And in the flick of a switch, you see her eyes go, and they are wired, they are fiery, there's like a strain in the eye, she's hypersensitive. And that's when you know she's going to flip a switch, and there's bronking and there's spinning and there's, discontentment and, she's stressed. at something that has triggered her and triggered her past. And that is the one thing that is left as a result of the trauma that she experienced as a youngster. And it's that first inkling. You always see the change coming when her eyes go. And that is just such a sign to, like you say, trust your instincts and knowing your horse, because you explain it to other equestrians and there's almost like a smile of amusement amongst them, a bit like, oh, well, you should, just work through it with your horse. Or there's kind of a, is it really in the eye, or is it just, bad behaviour? And you see that sort of judgment in people's eyes, really, when telling that story. But it is that first indication that that's going to be when she explodes, or that's when she's going to bronk, or that's when she's going to be challenging in her behaviour. And it's always associated to her past. So it really does show that cliche of the window to the soul. But it really, really is. And that's been my experience of watching a horse's eyes in horsemanship.
Oh, she's really lucky to have you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we adore her, and she's, one of the best things that have ever happened to us. And she's taken us on such a journey, and we still learn so much every day. And she has got the kindest spirit, and, she really can be the most incredible mare. And it's just these little flashes, these little experiences, and you think, wow, that is the past catching up with her. And it is only just the odd moment now, as opposed to, obviously, when we first got her, it was a regular thing we had to deal with. So really glad to see how far she's come on that journey. And for people thinking, well, okay, I'm going to read my horse's eyes, I'm going to trust my instincts in my horsemanship, how can I achieve a spiritual moment in the day-to-day? So in the mucking out, we're all rushing. If we've got a horse on box rest or a horse that's in, we're all rushing to fit in the chores, the hay, the feed, the mucking out, making sure they get their turnout time. If they live out, we've got poo picking and ragwork picking and the endless jobs. Say there's a grooming session, how would someone make that or transform that into a more spiritual experience compared to what they're doing at the moment?
So I think to start with, it's making that time and commitment to spend that time with your horse, because as you've described, we are crazy busy. There's always so much to do. And a tip that I got, and this is with everything, you have to schedule things in your calendar for that time, whether it's 2 minutes, 5 minutes, and that time is to be used for just you and your horse. And when you do make time for that, it's amazing then how much more relaxed you can approach all the other jobs and just managing your time, and it shifts your perspective and just makes everything easier when you do take that time to just slow down. Even if you stand there and breathe with your horse for 2 minutes, it will make the world of difference to your day. So I think making the time, plan those 2 minutes in your diary every single day, put an alarm on it, just as your reminder to go and do it. Then it will become your daily practice, and then basically make more and more time for that. And I'd say that's probably one of the first steps. If somebody has never done spiritual work with a horse, or they're just not quite sure about it, just stand there and breathe with your horse. That's step one. And then as your horse starts to open up and trust you more, and your horse will get the idea of it, and your horse will actually look forward to those sessions with you, and then they will start opening up to you more. You'll start feeling their energy, and it can just progress and progress, and then they'll start communicating with you more, whether it's through behavior or whether you see images or you hear words. So it's extremely powerful because your horse knows when you're making that time for them, and it's everything to them.
Aren't we all so guilty, Hannah, for thinking that by spending time with our horse, we need to be doing something or achieving something? We need to be lunging, or we need to be riding, or we need to be hacking, or going out on a in-hand hack. we need to be at a clinic, we need to be competing, whatever it might be, but we need to be actively doing. Otherwise, it's not a bonding experience, or it's not productive or proactive. But actually, just making it, also how lovely to try and fit in our schedule just that 5 minutes cuddle time, breathing time, grooming, that is just more relaxing and restful and about the relationship and the bond. And I think we can all do that as a first step, can't we, after listening to this podcast. And Winnie's actually on box rest at the minute because she's got a soft tissue injury, which is always stressful, as we all know. But I've been going up to her door every evening and just like with both my hands stroking down her face and just having a chat about the day as well, you know, thinking, okay, you can't understand my language, but you can hear the tone in my voice. You know, she might get some comfort from my voice and some entertainment from listening, and hopefully, I mean, we all know horses do learn some of our English words as well, don't they? Like feed time and all sorts of different words, just as our dogs do. You know, but you hope there's some sort of understanding there just by going and chatting. And although she can't decipher what I'm saying, that is all about the relationship building, isn't it? And the trust. Even though frustratingly, she's in a stable, which she's normally not. We try and keep her out as much as possible, particularly because of her past as well. That's what we're trying to build in at the moment. You've got to talk us through, Hannah, essential oils. You mentioned it earlier, but we're all intrigued. I am in particular. How do essential oils, something that I associate with, you know, a lovely relaxing hot bath or a diffuser in the corner of the house, how does that help our horses?
So basically, oils have different chemical compounds, so that's why they all do different things. And offering the oils, it's the chemicals in the horse's brain that tells them that they'll need that particular oil. And you basically offer one oil at a time, and you see what their responses are. And from their responses, you'll know whether they want the oil, need the oil, how much they need the oil, and what they're trying to tell you through needing that oil, and how kind of dramatic their experiences with the oil. And I've had horses smell valerian and then take themselves into the back of the stable for half an hour or lie down. They can have such a profound effect with them, and they are incredibly supportive, and I use them all the time. They go everywhere with me when I'm traveling, even if I'm not meant to be working with horses. My oils will be with me. I smell of them all the time. It's a really fun, interactive thing to do with them. So maybe if someone's not comfortable doing the breathing stuff and standing there with the horse, I love what you said, by the way, talk to your horse about your day. I love that. Offer them an oil, get them an oil, and that is amazing quality time and healing time for them. And I'm really passionate about bringing holistic care into horses' everyday routine. And that can be just offering one oil for 5 minutes, and then you have offered your horse healing that day, which is amazing.
And can you just go and pick up any essential oil off the shelf of, you know, a well-known holistic shop, Hannah, or are we looking for a particular brand or a particular type that's safe for horses?
Exactly. We want to use the highest therapeutic grade oils out there. And I have had it where clients have bought violet leaf, for example, but the horse won't want it at all. And then I offer mine and they really need it. So the brand really matters. And it's kind of, it's quite important as well, because you want to give them a good first experience with oils and then get a true indication for what's going on. So definitely the higher the grade, the better for your horse.
I'm so interested to know as well. You mentioned, Hannah, and feel free, obviously, if you're not comfortable talking about this, then please don't. But you mentioned your own health condition. And I wonder if working with the horses in this way, healing their traumas, working on their tensions, does it work both ways? And has it helped with your condition as well?
oils have really helped with my condition. And I would say oils and the healing work were the biggest things that helped me. And you can use them in a variety of ways. So you can use them in an oil burner, you can smell them, you can dot them on your wrists or your neck, and you can actually put them into a massage blend for yourself. And that's what I would do. I would do oil massages. I would experiment with which oils supported me, which oils did I react with. And it was just finding that right balance, really. And you can do that with horses as well. You can play around with which oils that they've chosen for that particular time, put them in an oil blend or aloe vera. So putting, say, chamomile in with aloe vera is amazing for cuts and grazes. That's a really lovely formula that I use. So you can use oils for everything, whether you can see something physical on your horse or not, basically.
And you can then massage. So when the horse selects the essential oil, do you then massage it into the horse?
I can do. It depends on what the horse is going through and what that particular issue is. But say if I come to an area in their back that I feel like the energy is quite stubborn and stagnant and it just needs a little bit more help, I'll first use my photonic red light therapy torch. And then I would use something like chamomile or yarrow, just on that spot as well, just to help them release the energy. So they're just amazing for everything you want to do and just to support them in every way possible, really.
And how would you say the combination that we talked about earlier of science, the physical body work, and the spiritual connection that you feel with the horse heals their trauma? What do you think the process is, if you can even put it into words?
So I would say the best way that I clear their trauma is tuning in with them in a spirit session. So that's when I can identify what the trauma is and release it for them. But I will always back that up with essential oils that I use for trauma. And then if that trauma is in a particular area in their body, so trauma is always stored in the gut, so then I will do hands-on healing for the gut, a massage blend, and basically incorporate it all together to give them the best healing experience.
And I know that you're really passionate about soul level relationships, Hannah, with our animals and particularly with our horses. And we all want that close relationship to our equines, whether it's for leisure, pleasure, or because we're competing our horses, whatever we're doing with them. But how would you define a soul level bond? And what is the difference between just building a friendship with our horse and a soul level bond?
Really, it's seeing yourself as a soul and seeing your horse as a soul and connecting on that deeper level instead of, and there's nothing wrong with this, seeing your horse as a friend or, companion. It's really tuning in with what they are experiencing, what they're telling you, tuning in with your body. How are you feeling? How's your nervous system? And really listening to the messages that your self has to tell you. And then, of course, you're more open to what your horse's soul is telling you and what they need and what they want. And when you combine the two, that's really where the magic happens and it gets really exciting.
That is really interesting. It's kind of ridding yourself of the labels of thinking of your horse as, the colour of its fur or the breed and, the variety of horse that you've got or the job that you've given your horse, and even ridding yourself of the labels of companion or friend. Would you say I'm part the way there? Me and Mum always talk about them as personalities. So I guess that is kind of ridding of all the labels and thinking of that core character underneath, their furry legs or their, different patterns and their different heights. We always say, what incredible, unique personalities they all have.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, they are on their soul paths just like we are. And horses always come into our lives for a reason. And it's kind of working together on your paths, and they always have something to teach us. They're always helping us to progress and grow. So the more open you are to that, the stronger your soul connection will be, and having the respect for them and truly seeing them for who they are.
What are the common traumas that you're seeing in horses in 2025, would you say? What keeps coming up?
I would say, firstly, far too many negative behaviours have become the norm, and people aren't looking at the reasons behind the behaviour, and they're not seeing the stress in their horse. And usually, stress comes from a traumatic event. And even if the owner is not aware of a particular traumatic event happening, because it doesn't have to be a big event that's happened. It can be something maybe to us feels and seems trivial, but to the horse it was huge, because maybe we don't know what's happened in their past, and that particular event affected them even more negatively. Maybe they are extremely sensitive, highly intuitive on a very high level spiritually. There's all these different factors. It's not just labeling them as a horse. There is so many layers. So it's really getting to know your horse on that deep level, being really honest and accepting that your horse might have trauma. And the thing is, if you can do that, you're being the advocate for your horse, because you're accepting that your horse has trauma and then getting them the help that they need. That's the difference. Whereas if you're just suppressing everything yourself, your horse is likely suppressing everything. And even the horses, this is a common one this year, people think that because their horses are quiet, do as they're told, they're fine, but actually they're shut down and they have so many issues. And another example would be that, say, the back has come back clear on an x-ray, yet feeling the back, feeling the vertebrae, there have been some of the worst reactions during even light palpation. And it would be horses I would have thought have kissing spines, and they don't. So just because you've got a clean x-ray, it doesn't mean really deep stuff isn't going on in your horse. The soft tissue, the tension in there, the trauma in there. So trauma is really huge because it does get stored in the body, and people aren't realizing it. And I think they see the word trauma and panic and think, oh no, I can't look into that. No, that's really negative if my horse has trauma. Well, it is if you don't get them the help that they need, because this trauma is causing huge problems. It's creating what is labeled dangerous horses, and too many of our horses are misunderstood and they just want a voice to tell their story. It makes me really emotional because it's too common and it shouldn't be. And horses have the right to feel safe, to feel happy, to regulate their nervous systems every single day, to heal themselves. That's their given right. And we need to make sure that we are taking care of them on this level.
Oh, really powerful words. And Hannah, what would you do in that example with the spine issue? There's deep trauma there. How do you act on that, and what can you do in the event of having a clean x-ray but there's deep trauma?
Yeah, I think so. Basically, if an owner suspects problems, they definitely need somebody who can come out and help release that trauma that's perhaps causing that. Saddle fit is a huge one. And this is where you really need to be tuning in with your horse and listening to your horse, because you will have saddle fitters that come out and completely bamboozle you and you believe them, but it's detrimental to the horses' backs. And I've seen this time and time again, and it's really upsetting. And the example that I gave you, it was because of poor saddle fit. It was just way too tight along the spine, and the muscles couldn't breathe. The horse was severely unhappy, and the saddle fitter says, yeah, that horse is fine with that saddle, really happy. So it's a serious problem. So this is why you need to be listening to your horse. You need to be feeling your horse's backs, and what are they doing when you're touching the back? Are they blinking? Are they moving away from you? Or a step before that, what's your horse doing when you're holding the saddle, when you're coming towards the stable? They speak volumes with their behavior, and it's time that that's listened to and not ignored.
And would you say as well, in that instance, change your saddle fitter, get recommendations, keep changing the professionals around you until you get answers and results?
Absolutely. And don't always follow what's popular at that moment in time, because that might be completely wrong for your own horse. And maybe they're just amazing at marketing, but actually the product is not good for your horse. And I know so many of us love riding. I love riding. Up the mountain with Phoenix is just amazing. And obviously, we want our horses' backs to be in their best health possible so that we can ride them for longer, and our working partnership can, sustain longer. So it's really important to ask questions, question your saddle fitter, get a second opinion, ask people who they're using, how their horses' backs are, and become an investigator, and just really, really listen to your horse. That's the biggest advice I could give. And also, if you bring the saddle out, your horse may shut down. So they may not exhibit these negative behaviors that are associated with poor saddle fit. They may just stand there and completely glaze over. And it's like you'll look at their eyes and nobody's home. So it's watching for that as well. Also having a really good body worker on your team, someone who works with energy, healers. This needs to become the norm, not just vet, farrier, chiro, physio. As amazing as they are, this is missing, and it's a huge modalities that are missing, and that's what needs to change.
Oh, I love that. So actually add to your body of professionals, your team that surrounds you and your horse. In 2025, why are we not seeing healer? As I imagine, hundreds of years ago, there would have been a healer perhaps around the horseman. And that was norm because, back then we were more spiritual beings. We were more openly spiritual, perhaps. It might have been something in regular communication within families and friendship groups. And now, as we all know in this modern society, we aren't, we're quite a shut off and shut down spiritually. We're spiritually lacking, really, aren't we, in society? So that's really fascinating that you should say, actually, that should come, something that perhaps was in our past as human beings and as horsemen. That needs to be in the team for 2025. And I wonder what the difference would be if everyone did that and if everyone had a healer, and the changes in the horses that we're currently seeing. Because we know that trainers are saying, wow, there are horses with consistently bad behaviour and no manners, as we call them, all as a result of how we're keeping our horses and how there is increasingly less land, less turnout. We're not letting them run in herds, so they're not knowing kind of hierarchy and respect. They're not learning that from their mums and their elders. It's something we're trying to teach our horses and our young horses that haven't been able to run in great herds. So yeah, I wonder what impact that would have, adding that to our team of professionals. That's a really, really interesting thought. And I also wanted to add in, thank you for explaining the shutdown horse, because so often we talk about it, we read about it, we hear about it on YouTube channels, or we see it in clinics, and a trainer or a professional might say, oh, that horse is really shut down. It's become quite a widely used term. But we don't always know the symptoms of that, and we can't always identify it ourselves when dealing with horses. So it's really interesting that you describe it as that glazing over of the eyes, that sort of nobody's home. And really, really sad. I mean, could you call that, Hannah, a form of sort of equine depression?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I come across depression quite a lot, and it can be really, really sad. And sometimes their emotions will just come through me and I'll cry, and they're literally crying through me. And they go through so much sometimes, and they're just really misunderstood. And a really good example, actually, a horse who I'm working with, he's always been termed as bolshy, dangerous, doesn't respect you. And he's always been met with that dominant energy. So of course he's going to meet that dominant energy with dominant energy, because he feels like he needs to protect himself. If you see him for who he truly is, he'll feel it, and he'll start to think differently, behave differently, connect with you differently. The softer you are with the horse, the softer they'll be with you. And there are mirrors as well. So that's a great example of that as well. So we need to start making the changes if we want to see the positive changes in our horse.
It always comes back to us. And this is actually a really nice point to ask you, Hannah. Can you talk us through a transformation of a horse through your unique work that has particularly stayed with you?
There's quite a few. So retreat stays are always very special. And what comes up in them is really deep, because we're spending at least a week together. It's all one-on-one. I'm the only person who handles them, and they are given that freedom that we've been talking about, that open space, and a really peaceful environment, which a lot of horses don't have. So it just gives them that chance to start to relax and open up. So I'm trying to think of the best example. There have been, I've worked with basically cases that were deemed put to sleep. And these were horses with really severe trauma. One I worked with, she was from Spain, and the trauma that she went through was horrendous. And she really started to open up layer by layer, and she was actually ridden again. So I'd say in terms of a success story, that's probably one of my biggest. Because
what was it, do you think, for her, Hannah? What do you think it was for that particular horse that enabled her to build trust again and to open up again and to unlock a different side of her, that, you know, coming from such trauma and in fact another country as well? What enabled that transformation? What was it about your approach, do you think?
Her feeling seen on a soul level, and her spirit being seen, who she is, and having the environment and somebody with her who's got no intention with her, who just wants to be with her and help her and heal her. They feel everything, of course, when they're not shut down. I think just being given space to open up, to let go, because it helped her to be brave enough to really open up to what's happened and gone on.
And when you say open up, Hannah, just explain that to us in sort of equine terms, because for us humans, it's kind of when the gates unlock, isn't it? And we start talking and we start making realizations and opening up about our feelings, maybe that we've trapped for years. But what is a horse that opens up? What does that look like?
So basically, giving them the space to let that trauma come up so that they can feel the emotions, to process them and let them go. So that's where working with them in spirit really helps, because when I understand what they've been through, what the trauma that they've endured, I I can understand them on that level and I see them on that level. So the reason why they build so much trust with me is because I'm connected with them on a spirit level first, and we go from there. So then, of course, it's the oils next. And at that point, their memories that they've suppressed have come to the surface. So they're remembering. And that's where you can start to see their anger come out, their frustration, the behaviors deemed negative. But of course, they're just talking. And from there, the trust can really begin. And I'll even come across horses who are ridden regularly who can't be touched for healing or bodywork. And that's really huge. So another level to the trust and opening up was her letting me touch her body. And because that's hard for them, because I'm basically placing my hand on areas of the body that are sore, that have got pain, that have been holding trauma and tension. So it is hard for them to actually open up to that because they have to feel. So that's one of the major reasons why they rebuild trust again, because they're allowed to feel again. And we just work through it really gently, softly, slowly. And this is why I have them for a period of time, because we go at their pace. Sometimes I'll work with them, then I'll have a day break, then work with them again, just to give them that extra processing time. And some of them with really severe trauma need that. So once we've released the tension in their body, and I can basically then choose what modality they need on that particular day, what they're saying. If anger's come up for them again, I'll start offering oils again, or just working through that. And I'll also do groundwork with them, energy work on the ground, helping them feel their own energy field, helping them feel mine. And then that's where the trust gets deeper and deeper, and that soul level bond comes in.
Oh, it's really sad and inspiring and powerful. And I just want to end, Hannah, on your words that you said there, which is, I think, really, really has a level of understanding for all of us equestrians when we think about it. You pinpointed that bad behaviour or angry behaviour from a horse, it's just them talking. And how wonderful to think of it in those terms. It's labelled rearing or bucking or bronking or bolting, but actually that is the horse having a conversation with us and telling us something, and we need to listen. So what a beautiful note to end on, Hannah. You're going to stick around, you're going to come behind the scenes in the member zone and answer some listener questions. If anyone wants to join us, you can join our Curious Equestrian member zone. But for those, Hannah, who want to find you, seek you out, ask for your help, how do they do that?
So I'm Saber Holistics on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. You can find me saber-holistics.com. So that's basically the best way to reach me.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Hannah, for coming on Curious Equestrian.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to and watching Curious Equestrian. If you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube so that you don't miss an episode and all that's coming your way, or you can subscribe to us on whatever podcast platform you listen. If you could leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, that would really help us to find lots more lovely listeners. And you can also follow us on Instagram @Curious Equestrian Podcast. We'll see you next time.